We have a significant mental horsepower and industry expertise here on stage, not including me, and we're just going to dive right into it. Just a quick question. How many of you are like educators or corporate educators? You have a couple educators. Anybody like production, like hardcore production? Show me your tattoos. Okay, good, good. And then, hey, oh, I didn't know where you were going to go with that, but I'm glad it was. All right, well, we're going to cut right into it. So we only have a short period of time, and you could swing a cat and hit 10 interesting topics. So I'm going to go all the way over to Owen, who's on the end over at Stanford. You can introduce yourself and then answer the question. I think this morning we heard a lot of do it at speed, but do it authentically with governance, et cetera. Can you just talk a little bit about how you're addressing integrity, authenticity, kind of the pieces that are required in quality video, but also at the speed that or the benefit that AI can provide? Owen.
So hi everyone, my name is Owen Modeste. I'm the senior creative producer and studio operations manager at the Stanford Center for Global Online Education. Earlier I was watching a video on Synthesia, and they talked about where's the line between machine and person, and is there a line? And in my opinion, when it comes to training, there is a line. The line is that when you look at person, with the content we produce at Stanford, we use renowned researchers, renowned professors. We use people that are well-schooled in certain topics. And then you look at the other side with Synthesia, and they use an avatar. They create someone to that person, an avatar of that person, to dispel like content. And I just think that in order to give the learner the integrity of learning, you need to have the real person. Now, I can see usages for AI in education, like introducing an exercise, advertising something about the course. But I really, I'm not in agreement that we should use synthetic production to replace the human. I think it has, and yeah, so I'll just end on that one.
No one's going to touch that? I can't believe you have. Okay, what about custom voice, a neural voice, where it's their words, but it's their voice? That would be acceptable, would it not?
That would be acceptable, but then with the technology that exists, how do you know it's actually their voice? Mm-hmm. Because now you could use text-to-voice. Mm-hmm. So I almost think that it should come with a warning that you have like on a cigarette box of the dangers to your health.
That's pretty.
I think we should start having a little line that says, look, this was created by AI, or this was somehow synthetically manufactured. And I think that will clear up a lot of the gray area. But to leave it just open to the viewer's interpretation, I think it's a little deceiving.
Okay, at Microsoft, we definitely have the label that will say made by AI, but we're not saying it was cleaned up in podcast or it was, you know, so not enough of me. What about you guys? What do you think? Ekta?
Well,
they'll turn you up.
yes. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, good.
So I just want to introduce myself. A lot of people might not know who I am. So my name's Ekta Hutton. I'm a training and development specialist. I've been in the industry for more than a decade now. I work with FIFA, the soccer governing body, and my role is to head the FIFA Digital Skills Program. The idea of the FIFA Digital Skills Program is to empower 211 member nations with everything to do with digital marketing. So I've been in the job for about 3 years, and have been amazing to see the kind of response that we're getting. I agree a little bit with the idea that we need to maintain the authenticity of the speaker and their voice, especially when it comes to training. So that's my opinion, and that's my experience as well, listening to my audiences and my learners.
So my name is Jackie Cooper, and I am co-founder of CG Pro, which is a training center, as well as the nonprofit CG Empowers, which helps to offer scholarships and other things of that nature. And I also agree, actually, and I think we're going to go into a little bit later about how people learn, and I think digging into that, I think we can talk about this issue a little bit more.
So, hey everybody, my name is Rob Cox. I work at Vimeo Enterprise, and so I'm going to be a little bit contrarian in that while I agree that things that are generated by AI in some way, shape, or form should have a label on them that says this was generated by AI. A lot of the work that we wind up doing is with organizations that are trying to figure out, is it authentic or not? And so I think that there is a creeping of things that, and the technology is creeping in, and how do we actually prove it authenticity, and where is that line, right, between, you know, is this actually a thing? So I think that's a really challenging thing to execute in practice. My other thought is there are tiers of content where AI may be a useful tool because the alternative is the content doesn't wind up existing. Right, so Owen, you've probably got, you know, the preeminent things that you're putting out at Stanford, but then there may also be some form of a video that you want to put together, which is like how to go teach a great course. And that's going to be consumed by Stanford people. Well, maybe that tier of content could be done with AI because it could be kind of created that much quicker, right? And consumed that much quicker, and the alternative is it won't exist. So to me, there's more gray area than absolutes in this space.
Okay. Well, to stay with you for a minute, Rob, it's not enough maybe to create it in AI, maybe create it efficiently, but when we talked in the pre-talk, you talked about consumability of it. So tell me more. I mean, just because, you know, it's going to be a lot of noise if we've got 1,000 videos that aren't consumable.
Well, so 1,000 is conservative. So we work with a retailer who's quite large, million-plus associates around the world, and they had a brilliant idea, which was all the good ideas are actually out in the stores. So I want to have the merchandising manager in Peoria teach the merchandising manager in Sacramento how to, you know, put cans together, and a display of cans. And they wound up with 137 years of video content. So it was a tremendous success, right? That they've got all this peer-to-peer learning, but then that created this sort of secondary problem, which was, who's going to watch this and how can they find what they want to do? So what we've been working with them on is, number one, how do we automatically and use AI to go do the transcription? How do we introspect the elements inside the video so that the searchability gets that much better? How do we leverage AI to translate it into local language so that, you know, individuals that want to consume it in a different country, or if their first language isn't English, they can consume it? How do we summarize and abstract each of these videos such that, you know, somebody can kind of look at 30 seconds and say, is this the thing, or read the abstract and say, is this the thing? So part of what AI is doing is not just the creation engine, it's actually making this idea of video at scale that much more. Organizations are now kind of able to actually use it and make it useful and do things with it that just haven't been possible up until this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think that AI should be distributed into two pathways. One creator, one enhancer. Okay. Right? And we need to make that a structure in AI so people can kind of understand what we're using it for and what's its use case. You see softwares like Descript and CapCut and Topaz. Topaz will correct bad videos. You can use it to, you know, bring the focus back, up-res the video, down-res. Then you have Descript. Now, Descript has really good technology of text edit. But to me, one of the best things in Descript is the eye focus adjustment on Descript. Yep. That technology to me is like really good, and I see a lot of people are coming out with it. But in my opinion, we have to kind of stay cautious, because I honestly believe Adobe is going to fill all of that in eventually. And a lot of the Premiere editing softwares are going to bring all that technology in. So I agree with you that there is space, but I think there should be two lines.
Creative, and what was it? Enhancer, and what was the other one?
Enhancer and a creator.
Okay. Yeah, I would add to that not replace it. That's one of the things that we've seen in our community as well. They really crave for the human connection, and to replace it with synthetic avatars, and it just takes away from the experience as well.
Well, oh, go ahead.
Well, I would say something that we had discussed on a call earlier was that most people are consuming videos between, what was it, 2 and 7 minutes or something like that on average these days. So 137 years of information is a lot to sift through, and likely people aren't going to watch any of that or more than a few seconds of that, because it's just not something that's consumable. So rather than creating a bunch of stuff that isn't consumable, trying to discuss like how do people learn. And for instance, with us, we actually primarily teach live online. And the reason for that is, number one, you have the community aspect. Number two, if people have questions, then they have a safe space where they can get those questions answered. And number three, you can learn a lot more information when you're going through that kind of community experience where you're helping each other, supporting each other. And rather than just being a hobbyist at some sort of field, you're actually gaining the skills and the depth that you need to actually retrain and learn and be a capable person. So that's how we do it. But then we are aware that a lot of times the bite-sized chunks from the videos themselves are very key. And when you're doing a small chunk that's 7 minutes, it's not the same necessarily as AI. It's a different kind of you know, like you have to manufacture what's the most important part that I want you to know.
Right. And it's interesting. So we've looked at a correlation between length and consumability, right? Because the assumption is, particularly with you know, those folks that are far younger than I am, they don't have the attention span to watch things. You know, TikTok has ruined humanity or whatever it is that we're worried about, right? The reality of it is, people will engage if things are relevant. It's where the relevancy drops off that they will stop to engage. So Jackie, I totally agree with you. It's about figuring out what's the most relevant bit of this. And the problem that we have as anybody that's trying to make something is, I don't know what is relevant for you versus what's relevant for Ekta versus what's relevant for Owen. And those could all be slightly different variations on a thing. So the way that you know, I tend to think about it is like, well, how do I use some of the technology as enhancements to create a snippet that is the most relevant bit for whoever, regardless of length, because if it is relevant, they will keep watching it.
I just wanted to add on there, Rob, this is the exact experience we had when we launched the program. The idea was there's enough information out there about digital marketing from Meta, from TikTok, from all of these major players in the market. So we basically consolidated all these courses, made them available to our audiences, and we found there was no adoption at all. I mean, there was no interest at all. We started supplementing these programs with something that we created specifically for our community, with speakers from our community, and suddenly we saw a 53% jump. And I'm not talking about the live sessions. This is just on the video creation. So it's so important to have not just a glitzy looking video, but it's also really important to have somebody from your community they can trust provide that information so the learning can take place. There is a social cognitive theory that we need to put in place as well.
So that's where I feel like my question to you was, where are we meeting the learner given everything that's going on? Was it bringing in that local expert or that?
It is the personalization. Yeah. So I think that the personalization is so important. This is exactly when you talk to a Meta or a TikTok or a Google, they're saying, know your audiences, give them what they want. This is exactly what we're doing when it comes to our training as well. Learning from our participants what they're looking for and providing that information to them in a very relevant, structured, bite-sized way.
And so, Ekta and Owen, I'm kind of interested in your thoughts on this. So the other thing that I've seen is it is a little bit about, so if you're doing an internal training or something and you're training somebody in a warehouse if they're wearing high-vis, if you're training somebody in an office if they're wearing a collared shirt, if you're training somebody, so the content can be identical, but they're looking at a different sort of set of human beings. Now what I would ask is that enhancement or is that generation?
Well, I would say it's authentic.
Okay.
Because the learner is signing on to learn from a fireman, so the fireman should be a fireman should look like a fireman, and that gives credence to the video being authentic. The other thing it also does is it sifts out other videos that it may compete with that are not as authentic.
Okay. So your assumption, so if we took this panel and it's the same content and we're wearing fire outfits,
right,
and then it's the same panel and we're wearing high vis because we're doing whatever, you would count that as a sort of more authentic because we're changing, or the avatar or whatever, the AI is changing how our physical appearance is for the audience?
Well, for me, my whole thing, I'm not against the AI. I'm not against the avatar. I am against not coming up front to the learner and letting the learner know this is what's training you. That is you see so many AI things out there in media, out there in retraining videos and stuff, and nobody lets you know, hey, this is an avatar. Because the thing about an avatar is, where is the content imagined from? Who is imagining the content? If you have a professor that's versed in cybersecurity, you know when he's up there speaking, he's versed in this field. When you have an avatar, you're asking yourself, how was this content contrived? And I think that's where the gray area is.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, I mean, we do have a label on that is AI generated, even on translations, because when we translated our one video from English to Spanish, it referred to sports fans as ceiling fans. So it's really important for the user to know that FIFA is not dropping their standards. It's just using a Spanish translation that's been generated by AI.
Yeah, we had Satya say X-op, and it came out sex shop. And so I got a phone call pretty quick, yeah. And we're back. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about the question that I felt that we were discussing earlier, and you've all sort of touched it. What is the most effective training? Is it what you were describing earlier with that hands-on, online, kind of experience? What are those ingredients, given the tools of AI, that are still fundamental and don't change in terms of quality best practices?
Well, I think some of it is the fundamentals of what you're trying to learn. I think those are more important than ever. I also think that it depends on how in-depth the subject is that you're going. So computer graphics is incredibly in-depth. In fact, I can listen to a live talk and I might need to watch the replay multiple times in order to get what I'm going for. So a 2 to 7 minute video is sort of like a nice little hobbyist touch to maybe look up something or use it as a transcript. But in order to become a master of that skill, it's going to require a lot of commitment and effort and grit. And so for me, being a part of a community and creating something and being hands-on and being able to ask those questions is the easiest way to fundamentally learn a skill and also have subject matter experts. And I will say one thing about AI, just because I know we're back, but I'm going to take us back there for one second to say that I've done a ton of extensive research on AI and even like the results that you get from various AI platforms. Like I've asked it, like, how do you do this thing in Unreal Engine? And every single one gives me a different answer. The answer is never complete, or maybe from multiple versions ago or whatever. And so sometimes it's a partially complete answer, and it's definitely better than no answer. But it's just really interesting to sort of understand that it's going through this black box and that you have some ability to influence it, but ultimately you're in control of what you do with that knowledge.
And just for me, I think the authenticity, or I was in Beijing interviewing somebody, asking in English, they were answering in Mandarin, and then I had somebody off camera who would give me the facial cues to make it look like I knew what they were saying, and then they would translate it below. I think Netflix doing things in multiple languages, that feels okay, and that we're expanding the audience. But I definitely agree, if it's a specific professor, you're citing that primary source.
And even in certain cultures too, you use the AI to translate language. It may be disrespectful to that culture because the pronunciations, the inflections may not be in the avatar correctly, and you could actually upset the learner. So, you know, we tried a test with one and we converted it from English to Mandarin. And we had a Mandarin speaker and it was like, this is not cool. Like, it's not. So you have to be careful with all these technologies, just taking them in and thinking they're going to work. And you might actually lose audience by trying that out.
So I think it's the first draft, not the last, right? That's always the mantra. Unfortunately, people will send it without reviewing or having a human look. Any executive or SLT at Microsoft, a human must see it before it goes out. Not so much on the tier 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
All right, Ekta, a little bit more about meeting the learners where they are, and in terms of short, long, anything that's really worked for you, or are you seeing not work?
Absolutely. I think it's a global context. So my participants come from all around the world, and that's why it's really distinct learnings that we get, as they all want things that they can learn on the go. So for us, it's really important that they can learn on their mobile devices as well. So this is something that we've made sure that all our videos are responsive in that way. We're also looking at, we've cut down. So we started off with 40-minute videos, and we're cutting them down as well. To make the bite size. We're not reducing the content. All we're doing it is just making shorter videos so they can consume it in the car or whenever they have a spare time. So those are the two things that definitely pop up in addition to the personalization aspect of it.
Well, I think your comment around the length, if it's something really interesting. I mean, we have some training content at Microsoft that's longer than a Castro speech, but is very popular because it's getting them that cert, it's getting them what they need. So I feel like it's a little unfair to say long video out, short video in, if you will.
Well, what you can adopt is a modular process. You know, we have very long form videos in our content production, and what we started doing is a sub-module. We break things down into sub-modules. So you get the learner back to the TikTok ideology, but you still give them the content. So,
yeah. But maybe not like a 3-minute intro of a 2-minute segment. And,
I completely agree with you that this attention span reducing is a myth, actually, because my son can play video games for 6 hours at a stretch.
That's a whole other panel.
Absolutely. So I think when it comes to engagement, I don't believe that attention spans are reducing at all. I just think we're not creating engaging content, and that's the onus is on us to create more engaging. The learning should feel like fun, and that's what we're focusing on. And what brings fun is that they can do that with their friends or with their colleagues, and that's what we try to do that with the live sessions, even with the videos. If they can have a chatter with their friends, they are a lot more engaged.
And I just want to piggyback on that for a second by saying that hands-on is still an amazing way to learn. And so you take what you've done, and maybe, like for us at least, I don't know, I'm assuming you do too, is you have like a project that they're trying to complete with it, or they're taking it and immediately using it and getting it almost like into long-term memory, and that's how you retain information, and that's how you're able to use it in your day-to-day life. So, but I will say that we do use like Riverside to take information, long bursts of information, and cut it into some shorter bits so that you can have like highlights like, hey, why don't you watch this longer one? This is something that it's about, and some of that is really useful tools. The transcription stuff inside of Vimeo is something that I use all the time, I will say.
Thank you.
And, you know, there are some very useful bits that, you know, again, a tool is a tool, and we've always been coming out with new tools, and I don't think that's going to change, but just helping people to achieve their goal is, I think, you know, the name of the training video.
It's so important. And for example, I mean, when I talk about personalization, you know, and I'm sure there might be representatives of Meta, Google, and TikTok in this room, when they create that, they don't sometimes miss the fact that certain tools are not even available outside of the US, or they're not available in a certain country in Africa. And therefore, when I'm sort of providing that learning to a learner in that country, they immediately lose trust in me. And that's one of the reasons it's so important to have that personalization, and hopefully AI can help us do that more effectively. But I agree with Owen that it should be an enhancer, not a replacer of humans.
I really like your comment around it should be fun. Learning should be fun. Is that, now, not to separate the two artificially, but is that the video person's job or is that the content creator's job? Early in my career, it was a software problem. It's a hardware problem. I mean, who's responsible for the fun in making these videos more impactful?
I think everybody in the process.
Okay, fair enough.
That's everybody in the process. If it's animation, you need to use its engagement, create a quiz. It's the, so I think it's everybody who is in that learning and development field should look at challenging the learner and engaging the learner.
Yeah, in our, we actually have an inner circle, which is a community, and we actually have them vote on what they want to learn, and then I bring in an expert in that particular niche field and have them come in and teach that thing, and then that keeps the engagement up, and then it's practical exercises, it's, like, sometimes it is play-based, and we do try and have fun with it, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some risk, Will, in your statement of like, is it this person's responsibility or that person's responsibility? And I love the way that you both put it. It's like, no, everybody's involved, because at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is center the learner, center the student, center the consumer of whatever it is this is, which then makes it everybody's responsibility. Yeah. Right? Everybody is trying to make a great product in the end. Even when you have community, I love the idea of communities. The community is in charge of making a great product, right? But that's ultimately, it's not mine or yours or theirs or his or whatever. It's like, how do we make the best thing for the person that's going to consume this in the end?
Okay, well, we're almost out of time. How do we make that best thing in the end? If it was a billboard on 101, God knows there's plenty of them. What would you have on your billboard, Rob?
For me, content is king.
Yes.
Content is king. You could come up with how many ideas, avatars, graphics. If your content is not centered on a specific demographic or a specific need in society, it's going to fall flat.
I would say embrace, not resist. Even though I might not like the technology now, I might have user cases later on. I'd be surprised. So embrace, not resist would be my message.
Nice.
And I'm going to have 2 billboards, I'm sorry. I can't stop at just one.
Go on.
One of them is always be learning. I heard that this morning, and I thought that was a great takeaway. And the second one is, if you're trying to learn something, find the person who knows that thing really well and learn from them.
And I probably spoil alert myself. It's, focus on the student, center the learner in whatever it is that we're doing.
I love it. Mine would be,
it's hard to go last.
Yeah. It's not only what you say, it's how you say it. Maybe that's the marriage of the two. But all right, well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard from Owen, Ekta, Jackie, and Rob. This is your favorite session, right? All right. Please do engage us after the show. Check us out on LinkedIn. Definitely tell your friends they can watch the recording at the Silicon Valley site. And we thank you for your time today. Give it up for this fabulous panel one more time.